Who's Tammy Baldwin? Why do we give a damn if we don't live in Wisconsin? Because if she becomes a U.S. Senator, she gets to vote on all kinds of laws that affect you no matter where you live. These are all national races. So people in California say, what the hell do I care? You care a lot. People in Texas, we have Ted Cruz. And thank God you do. But they need help in Wisconsin. Breitbart.com. Listen to this. This is a candidate put up by the Democrats who wants to be a U.S. Senator. It's always stunning to learn the truths about certain elected officials in our government. In a startling revelation from Media Trackers, Wisconsin, Representative Tammy Baldwin co-sponsored legislation to block funding of body armor and medical supplies to our troops in combat. She did this during each of her terms in Congress from 2003 to 2009. And now she wants to be a senator from Wisconsin. This is what Media Trackers says. And by the way, it was only in 2011 when Baldwin was considering to run for the U.S. Senate that her name doesn't appear as a co-sponsor on this legislation. The leftists do this all the time. Here in my great Commonwealth of Virginia, Tim Kaine's running as a bipartisan fiscal conservative. Tim Kaine is one of the most radical governors the state of Virginia's ever had. He left a massive debt. He wanted massive tax increases, including people earning $17,000 a year, but I'll deal with him later. Tammy Baldwin, Media Trackers, the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, co-sponsored legislation in every session of Congress from 2003 until 2009 to allow taxpayers opposed to the military, Department of Defense, and various intelligence agencies to withhold their tax dollars from being spent in support of those entities. Specifically, the legislation allowed individual taxpayers to block funding that would be used for the training, supplying, or maintaining of military personnel. That would include body armor, medical supplies, and other non-offensive equipment. At least 4 times Baldwin co-sponsored the legislation. In 03, in 05, in 07, and 09. Now, the 2011 version of the bill does not list Baldwin's name as a co-sponsor. At the time, she was possibly contemplating a run for the U.S. Senate. And so she needed to hide. She needed to rewrite her history. The legislation that she had co-sponsored is a project of the National Campaign for a Peace Tax Fund, a far-left pacifist group. Now, keep in mind, we have men and women in military, in combat, and Tammy Baldwin is co-sponsoring legislation that would allow taxpayers to withhold money from paying for body armor, medical supplies, and so forth for personnel in combat on the battlefield. The National Campaign for a Peace Tax Fund, the legislation was their project, far-left pacifist group. It's the centerpiece of their existence and has previously attracted the support of more well-known members of Congress, including Nancy Pelosi. Denying body armor and medical supplies to U.S. military personnel who were fighting 2 wars at the same time is not a particularly popular position, is it, Wisconsin? After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Pelosi dropped her sponsorship of the Peace Tax Fund. The nation's military was being thrust into combat, and troops would obviously need not just combat weapons, but protective equipment and supplies that could save their lives. But it didn't stop Tammy Baldwin. 9/11 didn't stop her. Maybe she doesn't have a kid in the military, in combat, on the battlefield. I ask my brothers and sisters in Wisconsin, do you want this jerk in the U.S. Senate? This immoral, unethical, left-wing, radical nutjob? Do you want her in the U.S. Senate? Tammy Baldwin? Well, let me tell you something. That race in Wisconsin is extremely close. Look, don't tell me Tommy Thompson is so imperfect. I'm fully aware of that. But he would never co-sponsor legislation like this, would he? Never. And we can never repeal Obamacare and all the other damage Obama's done to this country if the ilk of the Tammy Baldwins not only aren't chased out of Washington, D.C., but are promoted to the U.S. Senate. You and I, we pay this woman's salary. You and I, we pay her health care benefits. You and I, we pay for her pension. Wisconsin, wake the hell up. Do not send Tammy Baldwin to our U.S. Senate. For the sake of our military, for God's sakes.